And I just turned around and I hauled ass out of there. I was done. I wasn't dealing with that.
The hypocrisy of the cult is one of the things that turned me away the quickest.
When I turned my headlights on, it turned and looked at us, and one of the things I remember the most were the eyes were glowing red.
I see an orb of light. It is just circling these steps like it is waiting for me.
And he begins to tell them that he saw a UFO. They're basically like, what are you talking about? That's 7 foot up on a tree, peeking around it, and that's where I saw the top of the muzzle, nose, and the eyes. As soon as I made eye contact with this thing, it felt like death.
Welcome back to Tinfoil Tells. I am your host, Brandon Wright. Tonight is a special Tinfoil Tells presents Tinfoil Talks. I'll be joined by my guest, Mr. Matt Knapp from Bigfoot Crossroads, and my friend and co-host of Crinkle Conspiracies, Mr. Ed Corella. We're going to be discussing one of the projects I'm working on now. Not sure what we're going to title it, but Matt did coin the phrase, the Mississinewa Triangle, so it kind of sticks with it, so maybe that's what we'll end up calling this. But basically, it's about what I'm looking into around my regional area. Start to see a lot of patterns and weird activity, starting to plot point some areas of interest. So we're going to discuss some of that and try to talk about the documentary I'm wanting to make about it. So I hope you guys enjoy what we're going to talk about, find it interesting maybe. Before we jump into that, if you've ever had an experience or story you'd like to share and you'd like to be on an episode of Tinfoil Tells, make sure to reach out to me. You can send an email to tinfoiltellspodcast@gmail.com, or you can reach out to me through the website of tinfoiltells.com and go to the contact section. If you're a listener and you're from the Indiana area, especially up here in north central Indiana, if you've ever had a weird experience, even if you don't want to be on the show, I'd appreciate you reach out to me. Let me know a little bit about it because it kind of goes along with what I'm talking about in this episode. If you'd like to help the podcast out, I ask you to please share it around. Word of mouth is one of the best ways of helping the podcast out. You can also leave a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to Tinfoil Tells at. If you're like me and you don't enjoy hearing all the ads on the episodes, you can always go to the Patreon. You get early access to all the episodes, and they're all ad-free. It's $1.99 a month. There's also exclusive content available on there as well, like Crinkle Conspiracies, where you hear Ed and I talk about a lot of stupid stuff. So make sure to check out the show notes for a link to the Patreon. And also make sure to follow me on all the social medias. We're going to go ahead now and jump into this conversation with Ed and Matt. I hope you guys enjoy it, find it interesting. And again, if you have any information regarding some of the topics I'm talking about in my specific area, make sure to reach out and let me know. We're going to dive on into it now, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Welcome back to Tinfoil Tells. I am Brandon. I am joined by Matt from Bigfoot Crossroads and also my friend Ed. How you guys doing tonight?
I'm good.
I am doing awesome.
Thanks for being on here tonight with me. It's kind of a spur of the moment thing. The guest was supposed to be hopping on here soon, where I'm using the same link. So if he actually hops on, it's going to be an interesting conversation because to my knowledge, he wasn't getting on this episode. So he'd sent something to me the other day that said he wasn't going to be able to hop on there. I was like, well, I don't have a guest for tonight. So figured it'd be a good chance to talk to you guys about some of the stuff we've got going on here in good old Indiana.
So if he does, he's going to have 3 hosts. You're going to have 3 hosts talking.
Right. It'll be an interesting conversation because what he's going to talk about has nothing to do with what I'm going to talk about.
Okay.
But if he hops on here, then it'll be an interesting conversation. But no, just want to say thanks for coming on here tonight and talking with me. For anyone out there listening, this is a little different of a conversation. We're not going to talk about experiences or anything like that. I'm going to actually give you guys a little bit of a rundown on some of the stuff that's going on here locally around my base camp of northern Indiana. Ed's from the far, far northern Indiana. And Matt, he's just here because he's cool and he's going to be my professional go-to guy.
Extremely cool.
Right. Matt is an OG when it comes to research and looking into weird cryptid type creatures. So I figured better to have someone that actually knows what they're doing be on standby in case the shit goes down.
That's actually interesting that you're an expert on this. I mean, I know you got a show and I listened to it, but I didn't know, like, you knew a lot of things. So that's interesting to know that, and the audience would know that.
I mean, it's interesting that you call me an expert. Uh, but yeah, I mean, I'll listen to you guys scream and cry as you die at the hands of some monster out somewhere. I don't think of that.
That is the one thing that I keep thinking about when Ed and I had this conversation back in the summertime that I want to start documenting a lot of the weird stuff around here because I've been looking into it for several years and I've started to map things out and I started to see patterns and then I started to feel like I'm getting too deep into this and now I'm starting to be one of those weird conspiracy persons. So
Hey.
I went and bought cork board and some red yarn and started mapping things out. So I'm going balls deep into it this time and it's going full on into the whole conspiracy of it. But when Ed and I were talking about this, I'd said something to you about going up to these people's place and they're supposed to have Dogman and Bigfoot activity and all sorts of stuff. And you said, what happens if we actually find something? I was like, well, I didn't get that far. So I guess if something happens, just don't be the slowest person out there because we got to run for it to find someone else slower. So I'm going to try and find someone that can't really run. They're going to be the fall guy, literally.
There we go.
Kick him in the leg.
I'll just take like a to-go box of spare ribs and throw them out there. Maybe it'll, deter from our death. Don't ask me why spare ribs. It just sounded like something a monster would eat.
Here's my thing about it. And Mac, you researched a lot back in the day. You went out and looked for Bigfoot. How often does people go out and look for things and actually ever come out finding something?
Oh, geez. 1 to 10%. I mean, 10% would be phenomenal. Closer to 1%. It hardly ever happens. The majority of your time is spent somewhere in miserable conditions, usually, just listening to the surrounding environment and not really hearing anything other than natural noises. And it's plenty of time to get to know somebody, which is what you spend most of your time doing. So definitely take somebody that you get along with and can handle being around for an extended period of time, because that's going to be the only person to talk to.
I've watched a lot of the documentaries lately that have been coming out, and I've made this comment before, and I don't want to be guilty of the same thing, but I have a feeling it probably will be, so I'll feel like a hypocrite. I don't want to make something boring.
Right.
I feel like every time I watch something new, you see talking heads for a few minutes, and then there's nothing presented. Like they walk around and like, oh, this is the area. And then they go on about their business. So it's like, I don't want to be guilty of doing that, but now that I'm trying to do this, I feel like, what am I going to do? Like I'm going to go out here in a couple weeks and show people a location. Okay, we're out here showing the location. Now what? I'm not expecting to go out there and seeing a friggin' upright walking canine come walking out and be like, what up, guys? Welcome. Like,
Yeah, Southern accent.
they're always Southern. Anyone that listens to me knows when I do a different voice, I just, my Southernness pops out. Southern Dogman.
Is that what you guys call a Southern accent?
I guess. We're from Northern Indiana. So,
So like everything is a Southern accent to you guys?
yes.
Apparently.
When I was in,
not Bostonian.
when I was in Tennessee, I heard a lot of Southern accents. I was like, boy, my Southern accent doesn't sound anything like that. If I
You
go,
have one advantage though in your situation, and that's like if you look at other shows out there that do like episodes where they're going out looking for things, they're usually traveling all over the place, and most of the time they're going to a new location and production has to set up and everything, and then they might film for a few days and then they pack up and move on to the next spot. But you're going to be like right there where you can run to places and actually spend some time in places going back and forth if you wanted to. So that kind of increases your odds.
for me, I'm right in the middle of everything. Ed's got like about an hour or so drive. He comes down here for it. But all the stuff that I've literally mapped out is not even 10 miles away.
Hmm.
So And that's some of the things I was going to talk to you guys about because I think this is strange. My stuff happened just 2-3 miles from where I live. I found out about stuff that happened on the south end of town. So I know that spot because I heard it on a different podcast. The only reason I know about that is because someone told me to check out this podcast. They said, this guy's from Peru. So I listened, and the location that he gave, he said, is right off the canal street down by the Wabash River on the east end of town. I was like, okay, I know where that's at because we used to have band practice right there. So I asked my buddy if he'd ever heard of anything about that area. And he said, as a kid, he was always told not to go down there because some weird shit happened. Well, I think I might have known what the weird shit is because this guy claims that a werewolf come running into his camp. They were down there camping during Circus City Festival. For no one that's familiar with Indiana, especially Peru, Indiana, we are the circus capital of the world. A lot of people call us Clown Town. Ed laughs about this because he thinks it's funny.
It is fun every time.
The other thing about Peru that Ed likes, there's a restaurant called Mr. Weenie. There's a big old wiener on the board.
I've been there.
And it says it's Mr. Weenie time. So anytime Ed's in Peru, he has to go get some Mr. Weenie. So anyone out there listening, find us some
hot dogs.
Hot dogs and gift cards for Ed. He likes the wieners. But that's your goal for coming down here to do the documentary. I'll feed you Mr. Weenies every time you come down.
Hell yeah.
That's how I'll pay you for helping me.
So, like, I guess I don't know. I guess now we're talking about the clown thing. So, why did they choose there? I mean, I guess I should go to the museum and.
Well, here's the thing. Ben Wallace, I think is his name. Benjamin Wallace. I know it's Wallace. I don't know the first name. I should probably done more research into this. But I think it was like 1869 or some shit like that. And they were the part of the traveling circus, and they decided to set up camp here. I don't know why. I don't know what the actual reasonings was. I know the railroads was through here too. But where they set up camp at was along the Mississinewa River. The Mississinewa is very much Native American lands. The Miami Indians, this was their sacred lands. And I sent you guys these little, I don't know if I actually sent it to Matt, but the pinpoints that I just did here recently, every weird location, I put a pinpoint in Google. And there are certain spots that if you look at it, they're not that far apart. And a lot of the weird stuff seems to happen around these spots. So that side of town, it is where the Wabash River and the Mississinewa River meet. The Mississinewa River, you go down a couple miles, it's right at the location where the original camp was for where they did the circus. Now they have the Circus Hall of Fame there. Back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, there was a flood and a lot of the animals died. So they claim that land is haunted just because of the people that died and the animals that died during that flood. Now, part of the reason they built this dam was because of all the flooding. They built the dam in the 1960s. I've been told where they built the dam was on top of some artesian wells, like underneath ground, like wells, natural springs. They built it right on top of it. I don't know if that's just story or if there's really truth behind that. Seems odd. But when I started looking into things, if you go from there, you go up, there is 7 pillars. 7 pillars is actually a natural formation. It's like a sacred ground, and not too far from there is where the Miami Indian tribes' sacred sites were. But if you look up photos of 7 pillars, it's these formations along the edge of the river. And there's these columns and everything. It's like a natural formation. There's stories of buried treasure hidden back there, but no one could ever find the treasure because every time they'd go back there, there would be weird water moccasins or something guarding the treasure. Who knows? Again, folklore. But that is one of their sacred grounds. Now, just a couple miles from there is their burial ground. one of the stories from this area was Frances Slocum. She was a white girl that was kidnapped, taken hostage by the Miami Indians. So a lot of the stuff around here is called Frances Slocum. There's Frances Slocum Trail. There's Frances Slocum, like her graveside. There's all sorts of stuff for the local legends of her. Why is she so popular? I have no idea. Again, I should probably do a little bit more digging into that. But the Miami Indian stuff is very prevalent. I've reached out to someone from the Miami Indians. It's the actual chief's son. I went to school with him. And I asked him about stories that I've heard. And he just read my message and never responded. So I'll keep digging. But
There wasn't a lot of talk about it, you think?
I don't know. He probably thinks I'm crazy and just never talked to him, so I'm just pumping for information, which is true. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I'm doing research, buddy. So, but the circus thing I thought was strange because if you start to go down the rabbit hole, and this is straight up woo, but if you look into weird stuff, clowns have always been depicted as something strange. Like, what is the one thing that creeps most people out about circuses?
Right.
Clowns.
Right.
Why is that? Why is there like a weird phobia of clowns? Where did that originate from? People can't say it. I think it was
yeah.
It was born from people's phobias with clowns. And this was actually mentioned on that podcast I went on. Stephen King, he writes a lot of stuff, but sometimes if you start digging into things, it seems like he knows a little bit more than what he lets on to. So take the whole clown aspect. What was it? It was an old god, basically, that fed on fear.
He wasn't an alien, was he? Wasn't he an alien?
It was like an interdimensional being. Fed on fear. Kids' fear.
Right.
What does a circus do? Brings children, usually. A lot of emotions through there. People claim that Dogman or some of these cryptids, again, like I said, full woo here, but they are interdimensional creatures that feed on your fear. That is a big thing that I've learned from looking into stuff is Dogman feed on fear. Where that comes from, I have no idea. But sounds very similar to the same setup as it. And if you look into the clown aspect, clowns are notorious for scaring people, even though they're not trying to be. But is there something to that? Am I just throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks? Most likely, yes. But I thought that was a weird little connection because if you start to go over these paths where people had been seeing these quote unquote werewolves, is what I was told. They didn't call them dogmen. It is literally in the same exact area. There's 3 different people that have had sightings right where the rivers meet. And if you go right down that river, you hit where the Hall of Fame is. So somewhere in that region is where the original camp was. Why is there 3 different people having experiences of quote unquote werewolves in the same exact location in different years? What are they seeing? And then, has the Hall of Fame got anything to do with weird stuff? All the animals died from a flood. You keep going down that river, and then you hit Okefenokee. It's a weird name. I don't know where it comes from. Sounds like Native American or whatever.
Right.
But that is a very, very known location for anyone around here that's in the paranormal stuff. They claim if you go there, you will have paranormal experiences. I've went there. I've camped there. I never had anything happen. Doesn't mean that other people doesn't. I'm just saying I personally never had any experiences there. The only thing that weird happened to us, we heard noises coming from the bushes, so my buddy lit it up with a paintball gun. And then we started hearing quacking. So, pretty sure he lit up a duck with a paintball gun.
Or Duckman.
A werewolf sounding like a duck, so you wouldn't be onto it.
True. True.
It's a hard noise to make, but I guess they can make people's voices.
Right. You go,
And then all the stuff you're talking about, though, is just like setting off bells for me from my Rolodex of paranormal knowledge. Like the artesian well thing, like there's always stories of like paranormal activity and folklore being tied to those locations. You've got the old Native American sacred grounds and burial sites and all that, obviously a big deal. And Native Americans usually set up encampments along rivers and waterways like that. The place where you have the junction between the two waterways, that's another thing that people look for in the paranormal encrypted world. And then like the circus encampment, you know, I did a little bit of reading myself, you know, from us talking about it. And like that guy was, I think, in the Civil War. And after the war was over, like bought like a bunch of like railroad cars that had like circus equipment and stuff and just started his own circus. And it got really popular and he became part of like the circus community. And so that location, he actually set up like an encampment where circuses would go during the winter and like store their equipment and their animals and stay there until it was traveling season again, you know, because back in the day they're traveling by like wagons and trains and stuff. So whenever it became winter, the circus was shut down essentially. And I guess like a lot of like really famous people used to stay there, like the Buffalo Bill people, like that whole thing, which has been in movies and stuff. That circus used to camp there. So like there's no telling what people came in and out of there and what some of the things they may have done in their lifetimes or, you know, brought with them. So it just kind of seems like this could be a situation where you have just a bunch of different things going on in one location that's just causing all this stuff to happen.
That same location that you're speaking of, I have a video that was sent to me from someone that I used to go to school with. I was friends with him. He sent it to me because he says, I know you're into this type of stuff, so why don't you take a look at it? There is a very strange, I'll call it a UFO because I don't know what it is other than that. It's an oblong shape. You almost see like the light spinning around it, and it's silent. It's really long, and it's really big on the video. And it's going right over that same exact spot where the three different people have had encounters, right? We're down where the rivers meet up. Is it a coincidence? Most likely, but it's very strange that it's around that time frame. And what's interesting about it, for me personally, I remember it specifically because when he sent me that video, it was right around the time that my desk was covered in 27 flies. I was dicking around with the video. I was editing an episode. He'd sent me the video. I was messing around with it. I went outside. I come back in, and there was 27 flies on my desk. I don't know how to explain the flies. This has nothing to do with what I'm looking into. But that's what makes me remember the video, the time frame of when I got that video, because that's what sticks out as the random flies that were all over my desk. Is something to that? Who knows? But the video itself, like, it's about a 30-second video, and you just keep seeing it go in a straight line. In silence, you hear him and his girlfriend or fiance, they're out having a campfire out in their backyard, and they saw this thing. I messaged my buddy that lives down there, asked if he's seen anything, and I don't remember if he said he did or he said he heard something, or heard people saying something, but he doesn't know about what it was. But that's not the only thing that I've now turned over. The other day, I was contacted by someone who lives on the east side, is actually on the outskirts of town. It's a little town called Rich Valley. He was along the Wabash River. He was fishing. And his dog started to like freak out. He was hearing like whimpering. I thought it was coyotes or something. And then he heard a very low, rumbly, deep growl. So he got up to go see what's down here. His dogs are freaking out. And he walks over and he sees these tracks. He sent me photos of the tracks. I think I sent it to you both. You can see his dog footprint, and then you can see another dog footprint, but it's a lot bigger. He said the only thing, he's not into this type of stuff. He's not like a full-on cryptid person or anything about anything like this. But he said the thing that creeps him out is they appeared to be just on two legs. Like the way they were walking, it looks like if something was bipedal. They left the tracks in the mud. He doesn't know what type of a dog can leave bipedal tracks, especially something that big, because he had a 60-pound husky, and that track is like double the size of a husky track.
Yeah.
So who knows? That was in August of 2022. September, literally almost a month exactly to the date. Just right up the road, someone had reported seeing a Bigfoot, 7.5-foot tall Bigfoot walking across the road. I got that from the mapping project thing. So I have a guy down here on the river seeing footprints and hearing growls. And then a month later, someone driving reports seeing a Bigfoot. All in the same general area. And it's only a couple miles from where the rivers meet. Which is just the tip of the iceberg. You start going back down to that river and you head back towards the Mississinewa. There's all sorts of different little sacred locations from the Miami Indians through there. One of the spots, I've been told this by Bob Freeman, when he was out hiking, it was around Goose Creek back in the 80s. They were being stalked by large black canines. And I don't remember exactly if they were on all fours, if they were seen walking on hind legs. He just says that they're being stalked by large black canines. And then he said that the Miami Indians used to have stories of large black wolf people in their lore. Again, I can't confirm that because I can't get anyone from the Miami Indians to actually talk to me. So I don't know. But then there was reports recently that I've got mapped on there too, that I've actually went out and looked for, where these flying humanoids were seen. This was just this past winter. 2 different ladies supposedly seen on the opposite sides of the lake. If you look at them, they're almost in a straight line. One was on this road and one was on the other side of the lake on this road. The description in the reports were basically the same as whatever these things were. They thought there were people that opened up and they had wings and they levitated. If you listen to the original depictions of Mothman, they levitated. They never saw them flapping wings. I think it would just like rise up off the ground and then fly off, almost like Superman. So they didn't call them Mothman. I've started saying the Mothman because to me it's what it sounds like. But
that sounds like what they saw around Chicago.
Right.
Which, Lon Strickler is the main researcher in the Chicago Mothman, and they just call it the Mothman. But he was on the recent Unsolved Mysteries episode talking about it, and he said that since that episode aired, whoever it was, Netflix or whatever, has sent them like over 100 more reports that people sent in from seeing that episode in that same general area. And again, it's like most of the sightings, they describe like a levitating humanoid.
Yeah. Which is interesting in the fact that that's what these ladies supposedly said. I wish I knew who they were because I want to talk to them personally. I just interviewed someone yesterday. I did an in-person interview with her. This is back 20 plus years ago. She had an encounter on the outskirts of this area. So I got it mapped out there too. And what she saw was very strange in the sense that she was driving and a very tall figure was walking in front of her, but with its back to her. And she said the only way that she could describe it was she thought it was an alien because it was a very tall gray figure with a bulbous type head. Its head was bigger than the rest of its body, but not abnormally bigger. It's very tall and skinny and very linky, like lengthy skinniness. But the thing that she said that stuck out to me was she stuck her head out the window to make sure that it was actually there and it's not just something she was seeing as a reflection through her window, and it was still there. But as she was driving, it was always the same distance. No matter how, if she slowed down or went faster, it was always in the same distance till she got to a certain spot, then it completely just disappeared. Like, that's literally what happened to her. Again, I found this interesting. Not even a mile up the road, someone had reported years ago Bigfoot. So there was audio supposedly of Bigfoot. I don't know. I haven't heard the audio, but it was on the little mapping project thing. If someone had posted seeing something there. You keep going up that road, and then you get into Huntington. Someone had recently had a Dogman sighting around Huntington. This is near the Salamone Reservoir, which all that connects to the like all those little things are all around the same area. That area, which I talked with Matt about this yesterday, there's a little island out there called Monument Island. We were told not to go out there. When I rented the boat this past summer, they said that was the one spot we couldn't go to. And as we, of course, drove by it, because we were told not to go that way, so I had to go investigate, because you don't tell me to don't go somewhere, and I'm not gonna not go over there and see what's up. That's all about. So we pontooned our way over there, and sure enough, there's signs all the way around this thing. No docking, no getting on the like. They don't want you there. It says Army Corps of Engineers. I recently talked to someone that works for the park. He said that even as an employee, they are not allowed to go there.
That's fucking weird.
He said he doesn't know why. He couldn't give me an explanation as to why. He just said that is something that they're not allowed to go. That's one of the places that's off limits to them. Like, I don't even think DNR is able to go there because it's Army land. And Matt figured out, but just by doing a quick Google, which I did the same thing, it's where the original town was. When they built the dam, it flooded up over the town. They had to relocate it. So why is it off limits? It's very strange. And it's not a huge thing, but it's like...
It's an island? It's an island.
It's an island in the middle of the Salamone Lake, Lake Salamone.
How big do you think the island is? If I'm looking at or in your head.
Doesn't look very big on the map.
No, it's like a couple 100 feet, like wide. So
it's like where this town was, Monument City or whatever, and it's just the highest point at the town. So whenever they flooded it with the dam, that's just the only part that's still sticking up.
Which there's a similar thing that happened too at Mississinewa. When they made that dam, the original Somerset is now underwater. They had to relocate Somerset. The location of Somerset is where a lot of people say they see puckwudgies, which if you're not familiar with puckwudgies are, they're like the little humanoid, like, I don't want to call them fairy folk because they're more like spirit things, but they're like little earthy spiritual type creature thingies. I don't know how to label them because I don't know if they're supposed to be a cryptid, if they're supposed to be a spiritual thing.
I'm not labeling them.
Right.
We have them here and we don't talk about them.
Well, that's what's funny. Not too far from there is what people call Hobbit Land. Hobbit Land is where the War of 1812 was, and it's where some of the burial grounds is from some of the Miami Indians. So there's a lot of weird stuff that went on there, and there's supposedly a Puckwudgie cave. I don't know. I'm gonna go look for this cave. That's gonna be one of the places we go look for, Ed. So if we find a cave, we're gonna go and piss off some little goblin people.
Shit!
You guys are gonna get tied up by brownies,
probably.
Huh.
So
it'd be like what's that movie with Bruce Campbell where a bunch of little
Evil Dead?
Yeah, the
Army of Darkness.
Army of Darkness, where like him ties himself up.
So those are some of the little spots that I want to hit up because they're supposedly there. Now, if they're actually there, I have no idea. Again,
How
Bob,
much of like an area are we talking about geographically?
just a few square miles, like however big, like if you go the whole area from where I just went from my house to Huntington, that's like 35 miles.
Hmm.
And if you go to the south, it's maybe like another 20 miles. So roughly just say 30 square miles.
That's crazy. All this different kind of stuff, all within a small area like that. Surely there has to be something to at least one of the things.
Why are there so many Dogman, werewolf, whatever things going on around the Wabash and the Mississinewa River? That is the thing that stuck out the most to me is like where my stuff happened. It's between the Eel River and the Wabash River. The Eel River is just a mile to the north. The Wabash is like 2 miles to the south. And if you listen to Dogman experiencers, they claim that there's usually water sources around. I asked a lady that I talked to last week that's from Frankfurt. Where she saw hers, it wasn't too far from a creek. Well, water seems to be a conduit for paranormal stuff. If these are flesh and blood type things, obviously they're going to need water too. But what if it's something else? What if and this is going back to the woo side because people planted this into my brain a couple weeks ago and I can't seem to shake it because you psychics out there, or whatever you claim to be, I get your game. They claim that sometimes it's not necessarily like your place, but it's the lands themselves because of stuff that's happened to the land and water channels that. So let's just say something happened. Matt, you mentioned all the weird, like the people coming in with the trains and the circus stuff. What could have happened? Well, could that be like a stain on the land?
Well,
So
I mean, like circus performers, and it's not just the performers, it's also like the crew, the laborers. That criminals would join circuses to have a job that didn't ask questions and free room and board and everything. So like that's kind of what I was getting at, like all the different types of people that there's no telling who was camped out there at what point in time and who did what. And it could be some really bad juju, man. I could definitely see that happening.
Well, here's another thing that I'm going to tie into this, and it's completely off topic, but it's not off topic. Bad things happening. There is a house right before it's in the same general area, follow the rivers, and right around the curve where you stay on this highway, but there's a curve. There's a house up in the hill back in the 1920s and 30s. That was a mob house for the Chicago Mafia, and this is where they'd bring stuff. They were smuggling like during Prohibition. This was one of their trafficking houses. And out in the fields or whatever, this is where they'd get rid of some of the bodies. Because back in those days, it's all gang violent wars because you, the police, and Prohibition and your other rivals were out there trying to get the hooch out to everybody. So it's like, is that a true story? I don't know, but I know the house is there, and I've been told that since I've been a kid. So that story's been lingering. I feel like when people talk about stuff, there's usually some sort of, I won't say truth, but something had to influence those stories one way or the other.
And I mean, you don't know. I mean, it's that whole thing about history is written by, the victors or whatever. The Native American lands that were there's no telling what happened to get them to move and give up. You know what I mean?
I know what a lot of it happened because not too far from here is the Trail of Tears, where they forced them all to walk out west forcibly, not by whatever, but so if you go over to the other county over Cass County, you'll see a lot of stuff for the Potawatomi Trail of Tears. And that's where they forced, again, a lot of the Native Americans from around here to leave their lands.
Yeah, they forced them here.
Yeah.
We have a town called Miami. We've got Potawatomi County. Like, yeah, this was the destination, man. All those tribes like eventually came here. So, and if they refused to go, they were just killed.
Mm-hmm. Which
and I'm
is
sure, like, there was probably a lot of curses put on the land and the people that were at, the heart of the matter causing it. So, yeah.
now one of the other spots that I've noticed is it's kind of north of here, but it's not terribly far. And there was a recent Bigfoot sighting probably 2 or 3 years ago. And I was looking at that on the map too, and there was apparently another one back in the 70s in the same general area. But where this was, again, it's not terribly far from a river, a creek up in that area. So again, there always seems to be some of the weird connections, and it always seems to be with water. These waterways seem to channel something. And I mentioned Okefenokee. There was a recent murder out there back 4 years ago. Might have been 6 years ago, but the guy got killed for like pocket change, basically. They lured someone out there and then beat him to death and left him. The people have been arrested, they've been tried, everything else. I want to go back there because of people, this was their big haunted area, location, whatever, but literally the pull-off spot is right next to the Mississinewa River. There's been a lot of satanic ritual stuff going on out there over the years. Everyone said don't go out there because it's where satanic panic back in those eras.
Mm-hmm.
That was the big no-no place to go to. Well, of course, as a high schooler, that's where I'm going camping because why not? And again, the only thing we saw was random people roadieing back there. That was the weirdest things that ever happened to us. But I haven't been back there in years. But now, when we were out looking for the flying humanoids back in March, I tried to drive back there and they've closed it off. You can go so far back, but now there's a blockade in front of it. They won't let you drive back there. It's all federal lands now. I don't know how long it's been federal lands, but if you look on a map, it still comes up part of the Miami Indian area. They listed as, I forget what it was, but Okefenokee actually shows up now on like at least my iPhone maps. And there's a lot of weird stuff out in that area too, because again, you can almost make, you can do this with anything to be honest if you try to, but you can almost make like a straight lines and connect some of these things, which I think is strange. But if you do a line and like a spot, you can draw straight lines. Is that not unnatural? Like for having
that sound random,
like it's, if I plot right up here and I go straight down to where these people had Dogman experiences, I go from my experience to the Dogmans in Peru. I keep hitting the sacred lands of Seven Pillars. I keep going down, and then you hit spots to where people had seen this thing, and then keep going down. You see somewhere they've seen a Mothman. You keep going down. You go into Hobbit land. How does that work? Like in one straight shot, you hit all those little locations. So, seems weird, but I'm not saying it's connected. It's just an odd thing.
I wonder what the ley lines look like whenever you overlay them on those lines that you've plotted.
That is a good question. I don't know how to do that with Google Earth. I'm sure there's something you could do with that. But
there's this place here on the Oklahoma-Texas border called Brown Springs, and it's got like a lot of history. I've done several episodes over the years about it, and it's this basically a park, state-owned park, campground. But I mean, the place is famous for like paranormal stuff, Dogman, Bigfoot, organized crime, body dump spot. Like there's an old cemetery there. an old Native American burial site, like an artesian well, and it's literally on the banks of the Red River, which is the river that forms the border between Texas and Oklahoma. And it just sounds remarkably similar to the type of location you're describing.
Right. It's weird because, again, everything seems to be somehow connected. I don't know how to pinpoint it all together. That's literally why I want to do this, why I wanted to film things, because I can't be the only person that sees it. Maybe I've looked at it too much, and now I'm making that connection because I've been searching for answers for almost 20 years, and now I'm like, I'm onto something. I've got the breadcrumbs, but there's something strange about this whole thing. These random occurrences, these random encounters, I don't think they're random. I mean, they are in the sense of it happens to random people, but I think there's more to it than just that. I think there's still something going on. And I don't know how else to figure it out besides maybe going out there and see if I can't kick some rocks over and maybe piss something off. Apparently that's what I do. And Ed's going to be out there to record it and be the live bait.
Probably.
How do you feel about all this now that I've kind of filled you in on what I'm planning on doing?
I kind of already had an idea. I mean, you basically showed me maps of shit and like where things have been going, and yeah, that makes sense why you'd want footage of each spot.
You're probably like, this motherfucker's gonna get me killed.
Well, I've been walking in a lot of woods anyway, filming shit, so it's nothing new. I mean, I didn't have any encounter or anything, but I have not like actually like watched all these all this footage and like try to look for something crazy.
What do you think was going to happen if we find something?
I just
I'm asking you the question you asked me.
Well, most likely our equipment will die and it'll run off. If it's supposed to suck.
Are you going to go after it with me? Or are you just going to watch me run off into the woods?
I'd probably leave it alone, just like everybody else has, to be honest. I mean, we can't capture, we're not allowed to kill it, or whatever, depending on what it is. I could wave at it, just, hey.
Matt, has there ever been an instance that you're aware of that anyone that's ever encountered anything has actually been harmed by them?
I mean, that I know for a fact happened or that I've heard of?
Either or. I know a lot of people say that they've been terrorized by things, but like, well, you live to tell the tale.
There was one instance where supposedly these two guys were out researching, these old school researchers from Ohio, and they were setting up a microphone system. And this is before technology, so they literally got like microphone cords like strung out, and they're like burying the cords underground or something and taping a microphone to a tree or something like that. And like supposedly a Bigfoot bonked one of the guys on the head or twisted his head real fast and knocked him out and grabbed him up and started running off with him. And the guy came back to consciousness, being carried over the shoulder of this thing, and he was able to reach down, and I think he had a pistol on him and shot this thing in the ribs, and it yelled and dropped him and took off running, and his buddy came running up to him, supposedly saw the whole thing. Dallas and Wayne were their names, Dallas Gilbert, and he's passed away since then. But Wayne's still alive, but he won't talk about it or anything. And what I can tell you to support the claim that it happened was Dallas and Wayne were very, I would say, down to earth Bigfooters, in the sense of they weren't like woo or anything like that. And after this event supposedly happened, Dallas especially wasn't ever the same. He didn't act the same at all. He started getting kind of paranoid and making all kinds of crazy claims and stuff. He would go out and just take random photos of an area and then come back and study the photos with a magnifying glass and circle all the faces and the trees and stuff, and just became like a really weird dude. compared to how he was before this incident supposedly happened. So he definitely changed. Something happened that definitely caused him to change. If he was actually bonked on the head and carted off and shot a Bigfoot in the ribs, I don't know, but that was what the story was. But other than that, no, there hasn't been any events where any of these things have like downright attacked a Bigfooter or a researcher or anything.
When I saw what I did, why didn't it come after me? If I'm literally 15 feet from it and it wanted to get me, why was it more concerned with leaving? That's what's been bothering me about the whole thing. It would have made more sense to me if this thing was actually this big, ravenous, crazy monster. Why did it like just look at me like, oh, peace, dude, and go off about its business? Like, why did it not want anything? That's the one thing that I don't understand about the whole thing. At this point, I just wish it really was just aliens, and this is just what they put in my brain to mind fuck with me. Because it is such a random ass thing that I don't know how to deal with it at this point. Not talking about it for so long actually seemed to work better, because now that I've been more open about it, it's made my curiosity go worse. Like, now I'm out here wanting to go running out in the woods, and I've never been someone that wants to do that. So, am I going full on crazy? I've got the cork board I'm looking at with a little rope tied to it, and there's little spots now. So
I mean, whenever like that day started off with like you sending me a meme of a cork board, and then like saying like, yeah, I'm gonna do this in the studio behind me. Oh, that'll be funny. And then you like get the stuff, and then you're like actually doing it.
You thought I was joking.
Like, it's not a joke. It's not a meme. It's for real.
Yeah, it's in here. So it's like, I'm not going insane with it. Like, for me, I'm still rational in the sense of I got to do what I got to do to survive. But at this point, like, it's now become my next hyperfixation.
Dude, you've sat on what happened to you for a very long time. And then you started a podcast. And part of the reason that you started that podcast was seeking answers about what you experienced, and that's why you were listening to other podcasts. And now that, you've got a little bit of miles behind you in the podcast world, you know that you haven't found any of those answers. So I think this is just the next logical step in your progression of trying to find those answers.
That makes sense. See, this is why I asked Matt to be on it. He's smart.
Sure.
I don't know about that. I mean, I also went out in the woods and looked for Bigfoot. So keep that. I'm not too smart.
I wonder though, like, so you have all these like different encounters, some years apart, whatever. And yeah, I don't know how many people. You probably have a lot of people that live there anyway. I'm surprised. Like, it'd be more frequent unless nobody's talking about it, or they're just like the same. Like, I don't know what I saw, whatever.
I made a post in a local Peru group.
Okay.
Several people have messaged me.
Several, like 2, 3.
There's been like 4 or 5 people.
Okay.
None of them have mentioned seeing that. But they've talked about weird paranormal stuff, and I'm not trying to be saying I'm not interested in that aspect to it, but that's not really what I'm going after.
Right.
Like, the weird paranormal stuff, I literally live with that. So it's like, I'm not trying to go out and do that, which brings me up to what we talked about earlier. This weekend, we were invited to go to this weird paranormal thing that goes on just on the outskirts of the Mississinewa Reservoir.
Satanic sex cult.
Right. Now, this place has been known for a long time to be very, very, very creepy. My wife has actually been there for other reasons. And she said as soon as you walk into the place, it just feels heavy. Like there is a very weird vibe to it. We lived in that town. Converse, this is the town I just moved from 4 years ago to where we live now. My wife lived there for most of her life. That's where we lived before we moved back up here. And I know the building. I've never been in the building. The weird thing about that building is the third floor used to be where the KKK used to have their meetings back in the 100 years ago or whatever it was, back when the Klan was apparently prevalent. And a lot of weird and bad things happened at that place. Just, I don't know all the gory details.
No shit.
Right. But a lot of bad things happened there. So Bob, he asked if I wanted to come down there and talk to him because I've told him about what I'm looking into. Because of all the people that are from around here, Bob has been doing this stuff for like almost 50 years. He's very knowledgeable about a lot of the local legends and stuff because he's been very interested in it. So he's one of the ones that actually runs this place. He does. People want to come in and investigate. He's the one that opens it up for them, lets them go in there. So I want to go down there and talk to him. Again, not so much about that place because I don't know if it's connected to anything that I'm looking for. But if you do a little line, it connects right on that same line pattern to where other weird stuff happens. Am I just seeing things and am I making things happen because I'm drawing lines? No, because I didn't plot these things. These are the plots that people have been telling me. You know what I mean? So it's not like I'm not subconsciously making this stuff.
You're just not got a dart and just start fucking shooting and throwing darts at a plate. Like, oh, I'm gonna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm going off the locations of what people have said.
It's also weird because like sometimes you have a situation, especially in a small geographic area like that, where let's say somebody has a Bigfoot sighting or says they have a Bigfoot sighting. And then, you know, that starts spreading around town or whatever. And then like somebody else hears something or sees something weird and they're like, oh, I had a Bigfoot sighting too. And it kind of takes off like that. And then you've got a situation where 10 different people have seen Bigfoot, but in reality, maybe one has, maybe nobody has. But this is all different types of things being reported. It's not just like somebody heard about a Dogman sighting, so somebody else all of a sudden has a Dogman sighting. It's all different types of things, so that makes it even weirder to me.
I can't get past the random recent flying humanoid things. To me, that is, if true, like, what would have that? Usually when people see Mothman and they think of the bridge, like the right behind me, the Mothman of West Virginia, that was everyone was seeing that during the time. It was almost like, what was it, about a 12-month span they were seeing it till that bridge collapsed and they never seen it after that.
Yeah.
So a lot of people think that the Mothman was kind of like a premonition of something bad going to happen, like a harbinger. People claim that they've seen Mothmen over in Chernobyl, which I don't know how true that is or not. That's just one of the stories. Now you have the Chicago Mothman. Nothing's really tragically happened up there.
I mean, Chicago is like the murder capital of the United States right now. And like I've talked to you before how I used to be an actual reporter of sorts.
Right.
Every weekend, and I mean every weekend, we would report the death toll for Chicago for that weekend. And it was always like, 24 people killed, 11 people killed. You just don't hear about it because it happens so much. I kind of wondered if like maybe that's tied to it somehow.
It's not interesting anymore because it's so common.
Yeah, it's just like, drive-bys and gang shootings, so they don't really care.
Chicago's taken over for Gary and Detroit. For a long time, Gary, Indiana used to be like the murder capital of the world. And then it, I think, went to Detroit. And now it's gone to Chicago, which is completely off topic, but I used to have to work in Gary a lot.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably why running out into the woods after monsters doesn't scare me these days.
Yeah, I've heard wonderful things about Gary. A real getaway destination.
I mean,
Is that sarcasm?
Yes, absolutely.
here, this is 100% no bullshit true story. I used to work for the highway department, and they sent my ass to help plow Gary. And they had me following a guy through downtown. And he told me to get up on the sidewalk and start plowing it too. Put the plow on the edge of the sidewalk. I was like, dude, we plow roads, not the sidewalk. So I don't know if he was just screwing with me to try and get me in trouble or what. But I was throwing big piles of snow over on people on the sidewalks. And he's like, it's their fault they're not moving. I was like, am I killing people? Or like, am I burying these homeless people at this point? But he told me don't stop at any of the red lights. And he didn't. I was following. He didn't stop. He said, you never stop because you don't want people jacking the vehicle. We're driving big dump trucks full of salt with big plows on it. And we're not allowed to stop at the red lights. We just kind of coast on through because you don't want people to steal the dump truck. So for me, I was terrified. Not because I thought people were going to carjack the truck. I thought I was killing people because I don't know who I'm burying under all the snow.
Find him in spring.
I mean, I live in Oklahoma and I've heard about Gary.
I think everyone has.
So I mean, it's pretty bad.
But that is, I think that's some of the reasoning as to why I'm a little different when it comes to people being afraid of things. For me, I'm not afraid of going out and, I guess, looking for things that could possibly kill me, because for a year and a half, I had to work in a town that every day I figured I was going to get murdered. So
That reminds me, I know somebody that also was from Converse. I wonder if she's heard of that location you're talking about. You have to send me that, because then I'll ask her, because she's from Converse. Yeah. Just send me that shit, and I'm gonna ask her about it.
I will.
See what she says.
She probably knows my wife.
She's about my age, so I don't know.
I don't know. My wife used to be on the fire department there. But no,
But I don't think she's lived there in a long time, so I doubt she would have known your wife, because she's old. She's like, again, my age. But
my
she's
wife's
from-
only 33. I'm apparently like younger ladies.
Damn.
Damn, start calling you Jesus.
No one's going to understand that reference.
But no, I know, but like, yeah, that'd be interesting if she knows anything about that, because she's from there. And I've been to Converse, but we just stayed at her parents' house because we were going through like doing a couple shows, and we ended up in good old Marion. So
The one thing about the new hats I have, if I have my headphones on, they stab me in the head. So if anyone buys a Tinfoil Tales hat, don't wear big headphones on top of them.
you get sued.
Right. You just put a disclaimer on them.
There you go.
So no, I don't know where to start, basically. Where is a good place to start? I'm supposed to be taking a group of people out here in a couple weeks.
Well, if you're, let's see, do we go the furthest away first and then kind of go closer?
Where we're meeting at, it was actually, I was having a couple of them meet here, and then an event page got made for it, and my home address was put out there. I was like, I can't have my home address out there for the world to know.
Well, that's random that they did that when it was your idea.
So I changed it to the truck stop on the highway because it's not terribly far from where I had my encounter. So I figured that'd be the first place I take people to, because that's the easiest one to go to, because
Sure.
literally right here.
Sure.
And then I'm halfway tempted to drive up the driveway of the alpaca farm that got put in there and ask the people, like, so hey, You ever had any weird like dog things out here chasing your alpacas or anything?
Is it like of actual business?
They have a sign about alpacas, but we were there 4 years ago and we watched one give birth.
Maybe you should call them and tell them what you're doing before you like show up all weird.
Well, here's the thing. I actually spoke about this at one of the recent things, and someone went to the guy and told them about me and
Yeah.
what I experienced out there. And they tried to call me to come over there. I was like, no.
Maybe you saw an alpaca before they made the part.
Maybe. I've said that too. I was like, what if everything that I've experienced was just an alpaca, but except that's no. It'd be so much easier
They're
to
weird
explain.
looking. They're so weird looking. It'd be weird just to see a back of an alpaca just walking around.
I could totally get by with saying, yeah, it was an alpaca, but it was not an alpaca. As much as I wish it was just an alpaca.
Well, like I said, you know what you saw. Alpacas are kind of scary looking in the dark, I'd assume.
This is what was funny about it. And I talked about this on Tony's show. The air felt weird. I don't know if I've ever really like mentioned this before, but like, have you ever went outside when it's so cold outside and you can feel like it just feels different? Like you can feel like there's silence. You can like your breath is crisp. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that is how it was. You could almost smell like any type of smell. I didn't smell a single thing. We were out driving our vehicles. You'd think you'd smell the fumes because usually in the wintertime, I feel like my sinuses and my sense of smell is stronger in the winter for whatever reason. Almost because everything is frozen.
No.
But the thing that I was thinking about, we were right by the highway. I don't remember hearing vehicles go by. It's not like I was like really paying attention to that. It was also like 4:30 in the morning.
Right.
But I don't remember vehicles. I don't remember hearing anything. I don't remember smelling anything. And the air was like, it just felt like a really thick, heavy air, which is weird because it should have been crisp, clear.
Dude, what if portals aren't like doors, but are more like a giant bubble? And you were inside the bubble.
And that's kind of what I think we talked about. I don't remember exactly how he phrased it, but kind of what I was thinking is, what if things don't just bleed into our world? What if we somehow bleed into theirs? So basically, if you think of Stranger Things, and you know how she gets in this tub and her mind goes into this watery thing. Not trying to spoil it for anybody, but if you haven't watched Stranger Things at this point, like
Stranger Things, is that a movie or?
So,
so anyways, basically when this girl is in there trying to find things with her mind, it seems to be like they're walking in water. Do you believe that Hollywood has a way of showing things, like planting seeds of truth in a lot of the fiction that they put out there for people? So,
Simpsons.
so let's just say this is partially true, that there is a quote unquote upside down, but it's actually just a different reality, that all these things are around us. We just don't see it. It's like a different form of our world. So let's just say we happen to drive into this bubble. We're on one end of the bridge. This thing is on another end of the bridge. That is why what was walking in the road did not give a crap that the car in front of me almost ran it over. It didn't care that I almost ran it over. And then we left, turned around, and came back into it. And it's manifesting itself into whatever this dog thing is. The dog growls at me, whatever. But then it crouches down in this weird, hunkered down, almost like taking a shit position, and walks off all goofy on its two legs, but its front legs are up like this. It brought them up here and walked off really small and then disappears. Where the hell did it go? I literally talked to someone, that lady yesterday. She says, I know it sounds weird or whatever, but like, it was gone. I can relate to that. Where the hell did it go? Like, people that chase Bigfoot, they say they disappear. Where do you can attest to this, Matt. Like, people find footprints. Where do they go?
I mean, I have like explanations, but I mean, I don't know. I've never personally been in a situation where the tracks just disappeared.
Okay.
I was in situations where, because of the type of ground that it was on, you could only see certain tracks. But if you like felt the ground in the gate, you know, measured the gate and went like, okay, the next step should be here, and felt around on the ground, you could feel the impression or whatever. But I can tell you something that I've experienced numerous times was you hear something that sounds bipedal and very large, like breaking limbs and crushing debris on the ground and coming towards you, making all this noise. And they come right up like maybe 30 feet away and just stop. And that sense of like the air, the environment feeling different is going on. And it's like everything is almost like energized, like before a storm or something. It has that sort of feel to it. And then after a little while, you realize that everything has gone back to calm and everything's fine. And whatever it is just gone now. But you don't hear it go crashing off. They don't make any noise when they leave. So why make all that noise as they approach you? And if they can be completely silent anytime they want, and they do that whenever they leave, are they actually just being quiet and leaving, or are they just vanishing?
So that's where I get hung up on it, because for me, if they're making noise, they have to be some sort of physical thing here. At least that's what my science brain tells me. So how can something physically make noise yet not be physically around after that? You know what I mean? How do they just...
Yeah, I mean, how do ghosts make noise whenever noise is produced by like the vibration of matter? Like, we make noise because our vocal cords vibrate as air travels through them. So like, how does a ghost talk? How do you record a ghost voice if they don't have anything solid to make the sound with?
How does one know that we're actually recording ghost? What do we know? This is a rhetorical question, but what is a ghost? I mean,
yeah,
that is a question that you'll never get a definitive answer on, because no one really knows. Like, are they spirits of dead people, or are they something completely else? That's kind of
like what you saw. Like, that had to have been a physical creature because it was walking on the ground. If it wasn't a physical creature, it wouldn't be walking on the ground. Gravity wouldn't have an effect on it. You know, it wouldn't have to be stepping on the ground itself.
All right. And it wouldn't have had to go down into a ditch.
Yeah.
Which the ditch isn't really a ditch. So it's kind of, I don't know. Again, that whole thing, I literally play through this almost every day through my head. I drive down that road all the time. And I'm just waiting to see something. We came down it not long ago. My kids were like, I saw someone had Halloween decorations out and they had lights up. And I thought they were eyeballs. I think my whole family was with me. I was like, I got excited because I thought there were eyes. And sorry, family, I'm totaling out the van tonight. Because if it walks out in front of me, I'm flooring it. I don't care. Like, people get mad if I say something like that, but you're going to really kill that thing? I mean, if I have to. I'm probably not going to end up killing it. I'm probably going to make it mad, but...
Or it'll disappear.
Right.
upon impact.
You know what would be really screwed up? If I hit it and I stop and I get out and look and there's a dude laying there. And then you're like, was it a werewolf or did I just run over a person?
Well, you
Just
shouldn't have been
drive
on the
off.
road. Shouldn't have been on the road,
Should have been on the road there, wolf boy.
right? Wolf boy.
So now that's what I've got going on here in the world of Tinfoil Tales. I'm going to attempt to not make a boring documentary, but it'll probably end up being a boring documentary because unless I get attacked by a werewolf or a Bigfoot or get abducted by a UFO or piss off Native American spirits or Ed gets attacked by random racist KKK members or something from the 1920s.
Probably.
I don't know how interesting it's going to be, but
Well,
this is my evolution for answers.
Well, I mean, if it's gonna have narration like overdubbed on it, that should help. I mean,
Matt, you want to be the narrator?
Yeah, just we'll have to like live stream it directly to my computer or something. So I can make sure that I have everything saved in case something happens to you guys.
right?
They were never seen again.
No, you have that other guy do a bit, and they were never seen again. What do you think about that, audience?
I don't know. That is I might not be able to afford him.
Right.
But basically for me it's like I want to do this because I want to look for more stuff that's out there. I think you're just going along because you want to have that little notch on your editing, your movie making things. You don't
I don't know. I mean, it's going to be kind of, I don't know, just say I did, but like, I don't think we'll find anything, mainly because the time people find anything,
you're
they're
not looking for it.
They're not looking for it. Just like you weren't. Just like
About everybody else that ever had an experience was not really expecting to see something except for Matt, who actually had an experience by going out and looking
well, I meant
for
like in your area.
Right.
I mean, were those people, were they looking for it and then it happened?
it. No.
And
The
you
one guy
asked them.
come up and told me, because when I spoke at this event a couple of weeks ago, he literally sat in the back and I wanted to talk to him, but he left before I got a chance to. Him and a lady were sitting in the very back, and I asked if anyone else has ever seen anything like this around here, and he said he saw something when he was a teenager, and then he told me where it was, but he said they used to ride their bikes back there, and this werewolf come out and stood in the pathway of them, so they all were afraid and pedaled their way home, and then they didn't really talk about it anymore, which is funny, because that is one of the locations I mapped out. It's literally that spot that I keep saying there's like 3 different ones. One of the other ones was the guys that were camping down there during the circus. I thought the timing of that was weird. This guy's also was in the summer. During the summer is when the circus thing is. But when they were camping, they said a werewolf ran into their camp. And then they didn't all talk like more than one guy seen it. But they never talked about it after that. You know what's funny about what happened with me? Me and that guy never talked about it because he didn't want to.
Wait,
Why did I not talk about it for so many years?
Is there some?
Is it because people think you're crazy, or is there like weird subconscious thing that you don't talk about it?
It's just a stigma that everybody, it comes.
Yeah,
with.
but the people that have experienced it together, why wouldn't they talk about it? I've interviewed other people that have said the same thing. They've had multiple people that have seen this, and they never talk about it
Yeah,
afterwards.
but if they're not into that stuff, they're just gonna kind of deny it. Versus people that are more curious. Well, there's so many different types of people. There's some that absolutely won't believe in that shit and don't want to talk about it because it's not interested. And then there's some that are interested, like yourself. Like, oh my God,
But I wasn't interested before. I wasn't like, enjoyed my monster movies and everything.
Right, just like the
I didn't think any of this stuff was real.
The seed was implanted there. It's like, all right, just like anybody, like, I like fucking sci-fi and whatever and monster movies, but you just you just think, oh, it's just somebody dressed up, maybe. I don't know. It's like I've never had an encounter like that, so I don't know.
I mean, some people, don't have any idea what their kinks are until they experience,
Right.
And then they're like, "Oh man, I like that." I mean, it could
Right.
be like the same type situation. Some people just come out of it differently.
I'm not into furry stuff, so this is not me out there trying to mate with werewolf.
Taking a look at that wall behind you says a different story.
Right.
I mean, that's just my obsession. That's the other thing. No, not that anyone listening will be able to see this, but this shirt,
Yeah.
it is a Dogman.
Huh.
That shirt was over the song that I'd written called "The Beast of Bray Road" for my old band. This is funny. I'm going to relate my old band and let some secrets out. We have a song. The first song we wrote when we got back together was called "The Curse of This Town." And it was about Peru. And I wrote a line in there. It says, trying to remember how it goes. I think I said it to Ed the other day. Climb aboard, enjoy the ride. For just 1 week, this town's alive. That is in reference to the circus. The only time you ever see this town busy is during Circus City Week. And you bring in so many people here for the amateur circus. Why, again, let's just go we'll wrap this up here in a minute, but let's put the woo hat on here for a second. Let's just say there are certain things that live amongst us that either feed on fear, they feed on energy, they feed on whatever. We don't see them. Would it not make sense that something like that would take an area to where there's something that brings them here? The circus used to bring in all sorts of different types of people. We've talked about this. What if something is around here, and I'm not saying it's constantly here, but what if there was something here that made it to where this is now the circus capital of the world? Because for once every year, it's time to feed. I know that sounds strange, but I'm not trying to do the whole Jeepers Creepers thing or the
You
thing
did
or
say
whatever.
flying humanoids earlier, huh? And there's a cornfield next to your house. Just saying.
Right. So what if you take all those aspects and put it together? This town is a friggin' void. I even said that in the song. Anyone that tries to leave this town, I feel like always comes back. I've moved away twice, and for some reason, I always come back. I did not want to come back up here. We had this conversation earlier, my wife and I thought, I really didn't want to move back up here. But here we are. It's like, it's like you can't escape no matter what you do, it just keeps bringing you back. It's like there's something about this place. And then I wrote that song because it was my way of talking about stuff without literally talking about it, because you tell people that you see these things and you're like, oh, this guy's crazy. But it's funny because one of my old bandmates was one of the first people I told about it. My friend Mike, who was on one of my episodes, we'd even mentioned it on there. He was at the thing I talked to. He came up for that too. I pointed him out to the audience. I said, he was there. He was one of the first people I told what happened. He's like, oh, the dog? I was like, yeah. He's like, yeah, I remember you come over that morning and talked about it. It's like
the dog.
The dog.
So it's like, I told people, I don't know what they thought. They're probably just like, what the fuck's wrong with that guy?
Dude, we have a mutual friend that's from that area. I wonder if she knows anything. Well, she's not your friend, but you know of her.
I would rather not know what she knows. If it's the same person I'm thinking of.
Right.
Yeah, no, I don't want.
I think they were in the circus too.
It's probably her. She's probably the succubus out there.
What if I just randomly not associated with you?
You can randomly ask, yes.
As a what do you call them?
As a researcher, you're
As
an
a researcher.
investigator.
Because again, I need to ask that other friend who's from Converse.
Right.
So I want to know. You piqued my curiosity a little. Maybe other people have heard things. If they don't say anything, then my job was done. I tried. Like,
Right.
I don't know anything about it. So that'd be interesting what they would know. Totally unrelated party to anything of this. You know what I mean?
Well, hey, you ever heard anything about some weird stuff going on in that town? And I'm not talking about the old prostitutes that used to be hanging out by the Square D building. Everyone in town knows about that. So there's so many dark secrets of this town, which is funny because it's just a tiny little town.
Well,
I bet like
four
if you
people.
start really digging and get into like historic secrets that have been buried, things that have happened, you're gonna uncover a bunch of crazy shit about that place.
And that is probably what's going to happen. Here's what's funny. And I'm not going to call out the group, but I posted something in a local group that is into this type of stuff. And I asked if anyone had any experience, and I started getting comments, and an admin, deleted it. It's all about talking about your experiences and if you had anything, and it's for Indiana. Yet when I started getting people chime in about some of the things I need to be looking into, someone removed my post.
What was the group?
I'll tell you off air.
But was it related to subjects?
Yes.
Similar.
Yes.
Well, that's a little different. I thought maybe you just did like a community post.
No, it is straight up. It was a cryptid group, cryptid and paranormal type.
They don't want to steal. They don't want you stealing thunders. And I would know this because I know a guy from here who's also in paranormal groups. And they said there's a lot of toxicity going on in that. And he goes on a lot of rants about it, which is like interesting because if you're all into the same shit, there should not be a competition because, yeah.
Anytime you have any sort of like interest group, you're going to have gatekeeping going on these days.
Well, that's what I heard.
It's the same way in music.
I was actually hoping that guy would be on your show. I'm sure because he's also a ghost hunter. I should remind him, like, you should really be on that if you have any cool stories. Yeah.
For the audience out there, I know you guys don't like the ghost stories. I've been seeing what the downloads are for those episodes.
Oh, well, you're right. But
it's weird, though. I'm a paranormal podcast, but people don't want to listen to the paranormal. They want to listen to conspiracies or cryptids.
I thought they hated the conspiracies more. Interesting.
That's it. That's if you go political on the conspiracies. They don't want to hear about that. But they're cool with hearing the Illuminati and not going to the moon or whatever. But they don't want to talk about politics, which I don't want to talk about politics either because, yeah.
I mean, in short, it's kind of interesting how that certain group has won, and it's almost like that certain group is
my hoodie.
They were right, but we won't get into that.
My hoodie won.
My hoodie.
The orange hoodie. So no, basically for me though, this for anyone listening, you've listened to three guys ramble on here tonight, so I appreciate you guys listening. But
I was quiet, but yeah, I just wanted to hear.
I don't know what's going to happen with this. I don't know when it'll come out. So hopefully by next year, or if it never comes out, maybe we did find something and we never came back. So if you don't see or hear from me randomly, I'm going to have all right. So here's the thing. I mentioned this to Matt.
Yeah.
And now you're going to understand why I'm bringing this up. I asked him if he ever had a final episode, and I'm going to record a final episode. It's basically letting the audience know that something's happened to me. Because if it ends up airing, I've pretty much died or I'm missing. And every time it's going to come out, like I'm just going to keep pushing it back until everything else will release. And when that final one ends up airing, it's because I didn't change it. So if I didn't change it, something happened to me. Is it because I'm out here looking for weird things and I fell down a ditch and broke my neck?
Right.
I don't know. But
I'm just telling you, if it happens, I'm going to milk it for all it's worth. As long as I can. So thanks, buddy.
You have all the content you need. Dedicate an entire podcast to the conspiracy of what happened to Ed and I.
That's bullshit. You had to drag me into it.
We got sucked into the Mississinewa Triangle.
I'm totally not. I'm totally a innocent party. I just was here to film things.
Are you a believer or a disbeliever? Or
I'm not even sure because it's interesting stuff, but I've never seen anything, you know. And if something did happen, not like malicious, like if I saw something like that's fucking cool, and I'll wave, maybe I'll just wave at it. But I'm friendly.
I just hope that we see something and you wave at it, and then it gives you the finger.
Then
that would make everything worthwhile to me.
Sure.
Like if it's smart enough
like,
to know, but like look at these.
Damn it! It's got television.
It flips you off.
I'm just saying, like Ed really sounds like the camera guy off of Blair Witch Project.
There we go.
You know, at the beginning, like, yeah, this is all bullshit, but I'm just here.
Actually, I would prefer to be like another voice, not like being shown. So whatever.
You don't want to be on camera. You just want to.
No, because I'm the camera guy, right? Isn't that what's going on?
I mean, you can still speak.
Right, but it's just like I have nothing to do with this. I don't know anything about research and any of this. I'm just kind of like, yeah, I'm just there.
No, that's good. That's that's like the impartial witness to everything.
Yeah, you're the grounded person that has no ties to any of this.
Right. I am, but I'm also, is this an experiment or documentary?
Bait. Call it bait.
Yeah. Like, oh,
I already called you live bait.
Yeah, you did say that. Extra hot dogs for me. They're coming after my ass.
Mr. Wiener.
Don't bring it. I wonder if they will appreciate us giving them an offering of Mr. Weenie. Maybe that'll bring them in. That's the secret of Mr. Weenie. I've already solved the case, guys. All we need.
So, okay, so you never went on any like community pages, or they wouldn't post that kind of shit, would they?
I did go on. That's what I said earlier. I did
not
go
that
on.
One, but not that kind.
I did go on a regular Peru community page, and I've had people reach out to me, but there's only been about paranormal stuff.
Yeah. Because
I've gotten like
some people,
I got like 20 something new subscribers to the the page from local people following the page. I got like almost 30 something likes to my post on there, so I thought that was interesting because usually if I post things, no one gives a shit. But
dude, I put a post in a Oklahoma hunting and fishing group asking, if anybody's had what they believe was a Bigfoot experience to contact me. And I had 2 people contact me. I had a person from the Bigfoot community that I knew who they were, like, made a comment. And then I had like 64 comments just talking shit.
That's what I thought was would happen.
Yeah.
I wrote it to where I said I understand the stigma and I understand people's eye rolls and the laughter and everything that comes with it. I was like, you don't have to comment on her, or you can reach out to me in private because I'll keep it anonymous because that's how I roll. Like, I'm not going to go out there and publicly blast people for things that they've experienced because I know firsthand how douchebaggy people are. And that's why I think people message me, because I said that. I was like, I'm not going to tell people who you are because I'm not trying to get content. I'm not trying to interview them for the show. I'm literally just asking them to tell me where you had a weird experience at. I don't care if it's you saw a UFO. I don't care if you saw a friggin' old lady pushing a giant monster in a wheelchair. Like, I just want to know what you saw strange in what areas, because I'm marking out locations because I think these locations are similar areas. And for some reason, it has all been in the same general area.
Also, is Huntington part of it too?
It can be.
Oh, I just didn't know, because when you mentioned that, and then I remember that one guy saying about he saw little people or something,
and
like he lives out there.
Yeah, that is. I have someone else that saw a Bigfoot in the same area of where people have seen the little people. He asked me if I would want him to take me out there. I said, well, depends on when we start filming. This is not going to be a one-day thing. Like, we're not going to be able to film the whole thing. I was like, it's going to take a while, because I'm not just going to be like a lot of these places, like, oh, we're here for the investigation and we hit the spot and then we leave and never go back. Like I'm going to hit up some locations, and I'm probably going to go back to those locations a few times. Like, you don't always have to go with me, but
Right.
I don't
I'm
always.
not-
I don't
I'm
want
not
to go by
close.
myself, but that's why I have my emergency episode out there to let the audience know that I've disappeared.
Well, I mean, if you get a group,
I don't
I
want to
mean,
take a group.
not a group. Who is going with you? Is it just us?
The thing I'm doing in December that I told you about,
Yeah.
that's going to be like a small group of people, but that's not me doing my stuff. That's just me showing locations to certain people. It's not me doing it for what I'm doing on my own. The more people you bring, the less likely you're going to get anything happening.
Oh, yeah. You're gonna have to need like a standing cameraman that you can trust.
Because when you have multiple people out there, you have contamination.
Right.
So I can't say that any weird noises we've heard is not from the 15 people walking through the woods.
Right. No,
So,
You 100% don't want to let people not involved in the project know any locations.
right.
So the people that I'm going to take, I'm going to show them like spots, but I'm not telling anyone when we're going out doing things
Right.
because I don't trust people. As bad as it sounds, I don't trust people who are not going to go out there and try and screw around with us.
Sure.
But I've mentioned this before. If you're going to go out there and try and screw with people, there's a good chance that you're going to end up in this part of the country, in my area, probably going to get fucking shot.
Right.
So heed that as a warning to anyone listening to this. When I just said that warning, there's chances are that I'm going to be packing heat. So
Yeah, there's a duck out there with paint spots all over it.
Right.
Vouch for that.
like this time, it's not going to be paintballs.
Right.
They're going to be hollow tips. So
You said that with a southern accent.
that's just because I'm partially Southern. Just leave me alone. My dad's from Florida. You don't get much more Southern than that. He's from Fort Myers, Florida. So I still have that twang.
You should have said holler points.
Holler points.
Holler points. Well,
I'm
not from Kentucky.
From my gun.
The hills have eyes. Speaking of hills have eyes, I did love driving through Kentucky and Tennessee.
Yeah.
I can totally see why people think there's stuff out there because driving through there, I was like, yep, there's totally shit out here. Just because of how like desolate it is.
Unwooded, right?
Woods and mountains and just big gaps of nothing. So plenty of prime real estate for weird creatures to be living.
That's how I feel about the north of the Michigan.
North Michigan.
Yep.
And the Great White Michigan North.
Right over the bridge, and there's just like so much area that
You're basically in Canada.
Sorta, yeah. Huh? Yeah.
It's weird that like Canada's actually really close to us. In a sense, like if you go up by Detroit, right on the other side of Detroit's Toronto, isn't it?
Think so.
Isn't it right across that river or lake or whatever?
Yeah.
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 So Canada's not too far. It's only like 4 hours for us.
Right.
Strange. Well, guys, we can probably wrap this up. We've rambled on enough, or at least I have. But I wanted to spit off to you guys and figured it'd be a conversation because you two are about the only ones I've really talked to about a lot of this stuff. So now the audience gets to hear it. So hopefully anyone out there listening, you're still listening, appreciate you guys.
Wait, when's this episode come out? Just curious.
Whenever I decide to release it.
Okay, I was gonna say, like, you just told of your plan, and then it was like, is he gonna release it and then tell everybody who's doing it? Okay, never mind.
Yeah, I'm basically I'm going to tell everyone what I'm doing. And if someone wants to go out there and beat me to it, then it's already out there. So you've ripped me off. There's my proof that you ripped me off.
True.
So there's that. Sometimes you have to lay the groundwork in advance because too many people know things. So you got to get the jump on them. I'm leaving that very, very vague. So, Matt, you want to let everyone know where they can check you out at?
Sure. Yeah. BigfootCrossroads.com. You can find everything there.
You'll find my obituary on there too.
Correct. The goodbye video from Ed.
All right.
Yeah.
Ed's gonna write the song and serenade it and everything. Got all the instruments behind him now. The nice
Right.
drum set you just went and bought.
It was used. It's not that nice.
Now that you play drums, I don't expect you to actually come through with the recording for me because you instantly became a flake just because you've got a drum set. Like that's just natural. That's how it happens. Like,
Oh,
I got
show
drums
up.
now. I got
16 documentary projects.
I got drums. I can't go do this now. I gotta disappear.
I turn into a caveman. I can't keep time because I'm busy, distracted.
You're distracted by meth.
Well, I'm too fat for that.
Just from my past experiences, all drummers are either cavemen or meth heads. There is no none of them are mentally stable.
I was gonna say, like, isn't that the third one?
Yeah, none of them are mentally stable. So,
uh,
Matt, you're not a drummer, are you? Sorry to any drummers out there that I'm speaking truth
Could
and
never do
offending
it,
you.
but I've met a lot of meth head drummers.
Yeah, so
wrong podcast.
I think we have a better chance of finding a Bigfoot or a Dogman or a UFO or something than we could find a drummer that's not got some sort of issues.
Oh,
Yeah. For anyone that doesn't know, I mentioned Ed's in a band. You want to tell them what band you're in?
I'm in Beyond the Fathoms. We're based in South Bend, Indiana. We are working on a website, which I told the guys, like, why do we need a website? Nobody really looks at websites anymore for bands. But yeah,
That's totally 20 years ago.
that wasn't my idea. I think it's just to buy our shirts, whatever, merch. That's what I was told.
Merch store.
Merch store, basically, website. So there's that. We are currently on hiatus because guess what? We got drummer problems. So and that's about it. We recently had a cool music video and it got banned from freedom of speech, in my opinion. Actually, it didn't get banned. I had to take it down and put it in private. So if anybody ever wants to see that video, message me and I can send it to you. But
It's not even a bad video. It's just people got offended.
people with different views got offended, and it's kind of weird because it's not the people that you normally think would be offended. It's more like the clean cut versions were offended, but that's a different story.
How I'm afraid to ask.
Sure. No, go ahead.
I mean, how do you even get a music video like banned like that?
Well, okay, so I'll tell you, like I basically ripped on the pharmaceutical companies and like anybody that protects them, and there's like crooked cops and judges, but I ended up CGI killing them. CGI killing them. These people were my friends. Use green screen, fake explosions of cars, and certain band members' workplace didn't find that good for their conservative image. And whatever the news headlines were, which is funny because that was green screen news headlines. So basically, a fanatical like idea I had, which is almost like movie like, they didn't agree upon it, so they warned him that we need to take it down. And since I already deleted the other files because I needed room for my phone, I couldn't go back and re-edit it, which is stupid anyway because I think you can't really re-upload a video as current. Does that make sense? You'd have to re-upload it again, and you'd lose your statuses. So
Right.
I thought that was silly, and it didn't have that many views, so I wasn't too like butthurt. It was a lot of work, but anyway, that was the nutshell. It's nothing too crazy, but
Basically, someone's work got their panties in a
yeah,
twist because you were poking fun at certain things and
Yes.
they didn't find it funny.
yeah, and like it's funny because his dad didn't like it because he was completely conservative, and he told him you're gonna get in trouble for that. And we never told him his dad was right. But then again, like, well, thanks for supporting your son, Dad. I mean, your son's like,
I don't understand the whole trouble part though, because it wasn't like you were doing anything wrong. You were just cleaning up the bad people that are getting like bought off by big pharma.
nobody likes cops dying, which I don't believe in that anyway, to be honest. But yeah, or nobody likes judges dying either. But again, it was all it was like a movie scenario, in my opinion. I wanted to make a.
I mean, it was pretty cheesy, so anyone that took it seriously has no judgmental.
Like, I'm pretty sure that there's been other videos out before that have depicted those things.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I'm pretty
I was
sure
like, I
Ice-T
did it
had
on-
a
Little
song.
I
ditty
did it-
from my childhood called "Fuck the Police."
Right.
Right, and I did it like on a cheap budget. I didn't need a fucking like major label backing me to like do a video that had all these silly effects and silly acting and whatever.
So the closeout tinfoil tells here's something for the audience to contemplate. We live in America where free speech is not apparently free.
Mm-mm.
Because if it offends your job, you apparently have to remove stuff, even though it's tongue in cheek and the lyrics had nothing to do with any of that. The
Yeah,
video
but-
was just made of it. So
Again, the kicker was the lyrics were actually positive, but apparently they didn't look into that. Go figure, they just hear growling and it's like, oh, it's evil.
right. So, all right, fellas, and all listeners out there. Thanks for listening. Keep checking back. At some point, this documentary will be out there, and it will be available not on YouTube because you know what? They can kiss my ass.
Huh.
So, and on that note, we'll check you on the next one. And that's the show, everyone. I really hope you guys enjoyed the conversations. If you would like to be a guest on Tinfoil Tells, remember to send an email to tinfoiltellspodcast@gmail.com or go to the contact section of tinfoiltells.com. Just get your message to me. We'll get something scheduled for a future episode. And just remember, the truth lies in the stories we share, the connections we make. Stay curious, stay open-minded. Thank you all for joining us on this journey. And until next time, keep questioning, keep seeking, and keep exploring the unknown. Good night, everyone.
Tinfoil tails in the headphones. Yeah, it's time to rock. Got a story about a cryptid creature. Let's take a walk. Bigfoot, Dogman, they're out there in the dark. But the truth is out there like an alien spark. UFO sightings got the whole world shook. Conspiracies unfold like a story in a book. Media control, trying to keep us blind. But oh, before gonna use my own mind. In history, they don't want us to know the secrets they hide, the truth they won't show. Dominate our society, they keep us in chains. But I'm standing tall, it's time to break the reins. Control, trying to keep us blind. But I won't be fooled, gonna use my own mind. In history